Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do the normal mapping. Let me take this medium res object that I don't need at the moment, and I'm going to hide it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import my high res object. Now the object I'm going to import in, I'm just going to drag and drop this OBJ into my Maya scene here. And this object is very, very dense. It's millions and millions of polygons. So it'll take a little while to import it in. It's a very big, heavy OBJ. So I'll give it a moment to import it and pause the video for a second. Okay, so our high res is in. Right now the Maya viewport is being sapped of performance simply because this object is so dense. You also want to keep in mind that I'm currently using the 64-bit version of Maya 2011 with the latest service pack. You don't want to try to do this with a 32-bit version of Maya or a 32-bit pipeline. If you're on a 64-bit pipeline, you can take advantage of a lot more memory. If you're on 32-bit, you're going to run into some serious issues, and your whole pipeline is going to be handicapped. So if you're on 32-bit, I strongly suggest that you upgrade to a complete 64-bit pipeline. Just a very important note you probably want to make right there. So what I want to do is I want to take this object and I want to change its visibility to a bounding box. So I'll just go to the right-click menu here, go to Actions, and go to Bounding Box. And by doing that, now I can move around my viewport without much trouble at all. Now because we're not rendering that object in real time. So I'll take the low-res object here. I'm going to go to the rendering tool set and I'm going to open up my transfer maps window. So let me bring this over, and our low res is already on there. You want to make sure that the low res object at this point does have UVs. So if I open up the UV texture editor, I can see that my object does have UVs, and I don't have overlapping UVs, which is actually pretty important. You don't want to have overlapping UVs when you're normal mapping in this kind of a situation here. Okay, I'm going to select the high res object, and I'm going to hit Add Selected, and I'm going to go to Output Maps and choose Normal. And I'm going to change the name of this object here. So it's going to put it in a textures folder. Let me rename this. I'm going to call this, let me see if I get my spelling right here. We call this Damage Wall Normal. And that should do it. I'm going to switch this over to a JPEG. We're going to leave these default options alone. I don't want it to connect a new output map, so let me select the low res and I'm going to assign it a new material. I'll just go for simple Fong material will suffice, and I'm going to tell it to attach the normal map to the assigned shader, so I don't want it to create a new one and apply it. In the Maya common options here, let me change a few things here. Let me go up to render. I'm going to switch over to mental ray, and I'm going to turn off the Maya common settings, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make maybe a 1K map will work out pretty good. And advanced options are good. Mental ray common output, this stuff is fine. It's going to overwrite the map height and the width settings with these settings up here, which is perfectly fine. I want a 1K map, pretty good. Number of samples, I'm just going to go for set it to 1 over here. Could go higher, but it's just going to slow down rendering by quite a bit if you do that. In this case, I'm just going to go with a sample of 1 and see what I end up with. If it's a good enough result, I'll just keep it. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the target mesh, and I can show the envelope. This pink object here is the envelope that basically is going to help to calculate the normal map. Okay, so let me go back to mesh. And that's pretty much going to do it. I think I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and hit bake. It's going to take a while to bake this out simply because it's a very high-res mesh. Again, the things that determine the rendering speed are a few. One is the size of the map. A 1K map will take longer to render than a 256, for example. Also, the number of samples that you choose is also going to increase or decrease rendering time depending on what you choose. And then finally, the complexity of what you're trying to normal map. In this case, we're trying to normal map an extremely dense object, so it's going to take a few minutes to normal map. But with all my settings set up, I'm just going to hit bake, and I'm going to pause it, obviously, so you don't have to sit here and watch me rendering this out. So I'll pause this, and I'll resume. I'll come back when we're finished. Alright, so it finished rendering. It took a really long time, over an hour to render that out, which is actually very slow. It got the job done. What I'm going to do now is, let me take this guy over here, and I'll probably just hide it for now. I'm just going to bring this guy out. I'm going to go over to Viewport 2.0, and there we go. So here's Viewport 2.0. It took a long time to do it, but the quality is really, really good. As you can see here, the way let me get rid of this grid. You can see the normal map right there. All the detail they got, all the basically all the details and noise and everything from the high-res model. It was able to bake it into this nice low-res object and to a normal map. And this is at low quality. I didn't even increase the sampling settings too much. It did a really good job with the lowest sampling settings at 1K. So you can imagine with really high quality settings and setting this to 2K or even up to 4K if you were doing like your main character for your game or something like that. But even with this quality, it's more than good enough for like background props, environment props, stuff like that. Really did a fantastic job. Okay, so that's pretty much going to do it here. I will see you in the next video.